there are positives to social media, but there's very, very clearly a lot of negatives as well. I mean, a lot of the different social media platforms have become quite toxic. I personally left Twitter a few years ago now because it just made me feel very uncomfortable. Everybody's trying to have a presence on the different social media platforms, but sometimes I'm not sure that they understand why, and sometimes I'm not sure whether they understand the implications of having a presence. And the one rule that I've sort of started following is don't say anything on social media that you would not say in the job interview for your dream job. And in fact, there's a story in Australia that really brings that truth home. This is a story from a couple of years ago, but it's actually kind of scary a little bit, in that there was a woman who was a teacher. She was a very young teacher. She'd basically, she'd gone to university, got her qualification to become a teacher, and she was just starting out. It was only like her first couple of years being a teacher. And kids being kids, some of her students decided they'd be clever, and so they basically, started hunting around to see what existed on social media for their new teacher. And they actually found her old MySpace page. Yes, MySpace was a thing. The thing was that when this teacher was a young woman, I guess a teenager, she had a bit of an attitude and also had a bit of a bad habit that she shared on MySpace. And so they literally found posts that this woman had put on MySpace when she was a teenager saying, here are the shoes that I've just shoplifted. Now I'm going back in to steal a nice dress to go with them. So she was proudly flouting the fact that she was breaking the law, had no care about it, was openly admitting to doing things that were illegal, and thought it was very, very clever to put these things on MySpace. Now, as a teenager, you could argue, well, she didn't know any better. But this cost her entire career because the kids reported it to the principal reported it to the education department, and the education department said, that's a really, really bad look, we don't want to have anything to do with you. So the career that she'd always wanted of being a teacher had been destroyed because of something stupid that she'd done when she was very, very young. Now, I know for a fact that I did stupid things when I was very, very young, but social media didn't exist to record that. And I suspect we're going through the first generation that's going to be suffering the most out of this, because in the future, everybody will realize that everybody did something stupid when they were young and posted on social media, and it'll probably end up becoming illegal to hold that against people because it is a little bit unreasonable. Sure, I'm not condoning what she did. She broke the law, and that's bad. But the litany of things that your average human being does when they're a teenager, there wouldn't be a politician on the planet who could still show their face in public if their entire history when they were teenagers had been recorded. But this comes down to the whole idea of branding. And people often think, oh, well, branding's something that big companies do. Branding is like, McDonald's and the giant golden arches and their symbols everywhere, and branding's IBM and their little logo that goes onto everything, etc. And it's like, well, yeah, no, not anymore, and that's the problem. Branding is essentially your outward face. This is branding. Me speaking to camera, being prepared to share things about me, and I will tell you things about me that I feel, I guess, fit my brand. Now, for Stefan Schutz, I've obviously been prepared to be open. I've obviously been prepared to be a little bit vulnerable. I've obviously been prepared to be blunt about certain things, and I guess that's part of my brand. And if I say something here and now that comes back and haunts me, I need to be prepared for that reality. And that's why I need to make sure that I don't say something that is not appropriate for what my brand is. And that applies to everything. There are companies, I mean, especially like if you're in something like the military or in a government position, you work in as a public servant, I suspect that there's a whole range of things that you are probably not allowed to come out and say on your social media, because a lot of the government departments, etc., have policies. A lot of private companies have policies. It's like, look, we're sorry, but as an employee of company X, if you come out and say something, that could reflect poorly on us, and we don't want you to do that. People mistakenly think that freedom of speech is freedom from responsibility and freedom from consequences. That's not the case. You may have technically the freedom to say whatever you want to. That means that the government basically can't censor you, can't prosecute you for what you've said. It does not mean that a private business cannot sack you, or a private business cannot refuse to do business with you. So be very, very careful when you throw around your freedom of speech ideas. So our brand is important. If you're a creative professional who's running your own business, your brand is very, very important. But even a normal everyday person, your brand is important. Do you want to be seen as being competent and confident and outgoing and the sort of person that somebody wants to employ? And I'm talking about you. If you're simply a person that wants a normal everyday job, you want to just get a job, work in an office space or a studio with an employer who pays you a regular salary, you do your normal 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever the hours are, and you go home again, your brand is still important, because what you put on Facebook or Twitter is going to define how people perceive you. It's going to define whether people think you're trustworthy, whether you're reliable, whether you're somebody that they want to have working for them, not just because you might be good at the position or not, but whether you are going to be a good look for their company and for their brand. Does your brand align with their brand? So, for good or ill, we are in an era now where we all have a brand, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to make sure that we stay on brand. And if our brand is that, you know, I have political beliefs X, then it's probably really, really bad if I start ranting about political beliefs Y. If my brand is that I am religious belief X, then I've got to behave that way. Not just state that I am religious belief X, but I actually, my behavior goes completely against that. If I state that I'm a vegetarian, then I need to behave that way. If I state that I support football team X, then obviously I'm not going to be, saying bad things about them all the time on social media. These are all part of our identity. So our brand does matter. Our brand is part of our part of our identity. It matters to our friends, our colleagues, and our family. And like it or not, social media, one of the primary purposes of social media is branding. And every single word and picture and thought that you share on any social media platform is you defining and refining your personal brand. So be careful. Don't sabotage your career, don't sabotage friendships, don't sabotage potential clients by being careless with your personal branding.